welcome everyone to the Are We Well podcast. This is your guest, Neelam Chand. I am your producer who you've never seen on camera before. My name's Christine Baird, and I have the lucky honor today of interviewing our host, Neelam. We wanted to do this episode as a introduction, explanation, background, context giver for the show and its origin story. And so we're flipping the mic.
We flipped it and reversed it.
And, which is perfect. And I am going to interview Neelam and share some of the stories that she shared with me around the origin of the show, the why, the what for, and really so we can get to know you as the show host, because you've been so gracious sharing your community and not speaking a ton about your own experiences on the show. So this is our chance to get to know you. So that means we get to read your professional bio.
I'm excited. And I also feel like there's a lot of pressure on this side of the mic.
Welcome to your guest experience. All right. You're a pro. You've done this many times. All right. Here we go. Neelam is a Desi American, the daughter of immigrants, and a mother to a vibrant 4-year-old. Based in Salt Lake City, Utah, she spent over a decade as a diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging practitioner, deeply committed to social justice. In 2020, she launched her DEIB consulting business, Shift SLC, working with leaders and organizations nationwide to examine workplace cultures and its experiences of BIPOC employees. Lately, her focus has shifted inward, leading her to ask deeper questions. What does it really mean to belong? How have outside beliefs shaped my self-doubt? And what does it actually feel like to be in my body? These reflections have helped her reconnect with herself, influencing how she approaches family, work, community, and relationships. And along the way, she's leaned into crystals, energy readings, and all the spiritual woo-woo stuff. Through her podcast, Are We Well?, Neelam invites others to join her in exploring these big questions, believing that for society to become more just, it must first heal together. And if that isn't a beautiful bio. So welcome, Neelam, to Are We Well?
Thank you.
We're delighted you agreed to do this. And I want to start really with kind of maybe a chance for you to tell an origin story of sorts for this show. As a DEIB professional, a social justice advocate, when did you start focusing on wellness as an essential part of moving that work forward?
Yeah. Thanks for allowing me this opportunity to do. I just love that I'm able to kind of be on the other side and talk a little bit about the why this podcast and why it's important to me. So my origin story is one of where I am really unprocessed trauma. I would say it's a story of unprocessed trauma and internalized trauma. So currently, my profession, diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, is under attack. Mm-hmm. Now, this has been under attack for decades.
Yes.
I happen to be in the decade that it's being under attack right now in the ways that it is. But it's not like any other profession being under attack, like engineer or architecture or a medical profession. This is very personal work. So as the practice itself is being under attack, it feels very much like my identity is also being under attack. Mm-hmm. And that is not a new feeling for me. You see, I was born in California, but grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah, in probably one of the most racist school district in Davis County, Utah.
If you know, you know. If you're from here, there is a long history of racism in this state and in these culture and communities. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Davis County itself is actually under investigation with the Department of Justice. Like it's come to a head. It's actually just seeing that sort of validates my experiences growing up. Mm-hmm. So I grew up, brown skin, Hindu, in an area predominantly white, predominantly, Mormon. And I was bullied. I was picked on. I was treated as an other, and not just from my peers, but teachers and administrators and people who led some of these systems. So I was constantly told, you don't belong. You're not enough. You're not worthy. And so I sort of embodied that narrative as my reality. And even more so, going even back into my family lineage, I come from ancestors of colonized countries, right? They were told in their own country that they didn't belong, right? So that was then permeating into their bodies. And then my migrant parents who came to the U.S. Were also told, you don't belong. You don't look like you belong. The men had to prove themselves in their existence, which then in turn, they projected out to the women in my family, trying to grasp power in very abusive ways. So then the women in my family were feeling like they weren't worthy, they weren't enough, they didn't belong. That then coagulated into cells where in the womb of my mom, I was feeling these things because she was feeling these things and because her mom was feeling these things. So taking that, combining that with the external community that I grew up in, telling me that I didn't belong. And that was around 8, 9, 10, where I experienced a lot of my upbringing here in Utah, being told I didn't belong. And then in my 40-something-year-old body now, where this role that I'm in is under attack. And not only that, I walk into these spaces like trainings, executive trainings, working with corporations that also are kind of like, should you be here? Do you need to be here? And I'm constantly proving myself in there. I'm basically this 40-year-old, 8, 9, 10-year-old practitioner with unprocessed trauma from the past, from my upbringing, and now. And so as this profession has become under attack nationally, I had to take a moment and pause because something in me, in my gut, was telling me that I don't feel right. How am I supposed to talk about belonging, one of the core parts of being a human? How am I supposed to teach about that, talk about that, create spaces about that if I myself didn't feel that in my own body? That just didn't seem right. And so I paused. And as I really think about some of these traumas that have been stored in me, I also found that I was acting in these traumas with anger, resent. That was bleeding into my personal relationships, the way I showed up in community. So I started taking a toll on my body. So I really needed to just stop and really think about this attack. Do I need to go back into survivorship, or can I actually just be? Is there a way to just be in the midst of all this? Can I stop doing the thing that I've always done, that my ancestors have always done, and move differently? And so that's why I started to ask those like really tough questions of myself, like really truly turning inside and saying, why don't I feel this sense of belonging? Where is it actually coming from? And is it mine to hold? Why don't I feel like I'm enough when I know I am, but I'm being told I'm not? Is that really mine? This idea of worthiness, of wanting to feel, or at least wanting to prove that I'm worthy. Where is that coming from? And so that kind of unfolded this whole healing wellness journey.
That is a vulnerable and I think very relatable story. I'm so grateful that you shared probably what other context would you have had the opportunity to maybe share that? I think a lot of the listeners are really going to resonate because you don't have to have a certain color of skin or a certain ethnic heritage to have felt that sense of belonging. People could be listening to this show from any part of the world. I think a lot of our listeners are probably local to Utah, where so much of your community is,
And that's interesting, too, because as I started to unfold some of these questions, I've run into so many people, women, that have had that same internal, like, in their gut or sometimes in their chest, somewhere stored in their body, of I'm not enough, I'm not worthy, I don't belong. And it's this constant narrative. So it's interesting to, one, name it, but also interesting to see, oh, we're all very connected in that way, that society's telling us these things and that we need to somehow examine it so it's not our own. I think that's really sad that we all feel that. And then also very, I don't know, liberating in some sense, in that my healing is actually your healing, and your healing is your healing, and your healing is this other person's healing. And then together we can actually combat some of this narrative that's been, these belief systems that have been somewhat installed in us.
Yeah. Okay. So my next question is, how has your healing journey been influenced by the conversations you've hosted on this show?
Yeah. So another story. So when I turned 40, and I don't know what it is about turning 40, but I've spoken to so many women in particular that when they turn 40, something changes in them. So about a year and a half. So when I turned 40, I threw this this little party. Well, it wasn't a party. It was more like a retreat for some of my girlfriends and family members. A bunch of us women, each one of them dealing with their own stuff. Some going through divorce, some going through difficult parenthood, jobs. Like it was a needed break. And so I planned this retreat, and I booked us a massage. This is so basic, but I booked us a massage, and my massage therapist, normal, everything is good. You know, you've been in a massage before. She's massaging me, and she gets to this part of my body, and she starts to really get into it.
You're talking about your shoulders.
My shoulders, like, yeah. Oh, yeah. So like just right there, and she's really getting into it. And I kind of put my head up, out of that hole. Yeah. I put my head up and I look at her and I'm like, I feel like crying right now. And she's just like, yeah, you need to let it go. And I was like, ah! And I just start sobbing. Now, never in my life have I gone to a massage therapist and gotten a massage. Yeah. It's supposed to be relaxing. Yeah. Sometimes it's painful. Yeah. Like I'll cry because of that.
Yeah, I have been there as well, but I haven't had an emotional release.
No, this is an emotional release. And she then says to me, she's like, a lot of energy is coming out of this stored part of you. This stuck energy is coming out of you. And she's like, I need you to tell your body to release what's not serving you. And then she goes into, you need to also tell your inner child, who is 3. She really just starts getting into it. She's like, who's 3? You need to tell her that she is enough. And I just start crying even more because I'm like, how does she know? And why is this child 3? And actually at the time, my own little boy was 3. And so it was such an emotional sort of breakthrough. And I asked her, I'm like, what did you just do? And she's like, honestly, I'm a massage therapist. I came here to just massage you, but this was more of an intuition for me to really help you release what you were going through at the moment. And that's what opened up this idea of healing. That's really what opened it up for me. So what I was saying earlier, there was a moment of stop and something's got to change. Mm-hmm. And then that happened subsequently at the same time. That moment of stop and healing. And so I started to really dig into inner child work, body trauma and what that actually means. And as I was really digging into this, I ran into people, professionals, healers, educators that were also either on that same journey or have gone through something like that. This existential sort of questioning and crisis in some sense. And I was able to really connect with some of these folks. So then fast forward to the podcast. I really wanted to create a platform where I can talk about these different parts of healing, and talk about it with people who understood it, who knew it, because I didn't, and I still don't. I'm only a year and a half into actual healing work. And I am very proud of how far I've gone or come, but I have a ways to go. And so I think your question, what was your question?
I'm so glad you told this story. The question was, how has the experience of hosting these conversations on the podcast impacted your healing journey or moved it forward or been a surprise, anything like that?
So I didn't even answer the question. I
feel
went through
like
this roundabout.
You
but
have been answering it in a different way, and I think that was a very powerful story. And the next time someone listening has a massage where they have an emotional release, they'll know they're not the only one.
It was just such an interesting, and it was a pivotal moment for me because it was an indication that I was holding on to so much and I didn't even really pay attention to it.
Yeah.
I knew something had to change.
Yeah.
I just didn't know what. And that was the one moment for me to just kind of unfold that onion and just really understand, okay, there's a lot of deeper layers in here that I really need to get into. And so as I'm having these conversations in the podcast, it's an opportunity for me to have these intimate dialogue that I wouldn't typically have. Even as, those who are healers and educators, we've had like maybe surface level conversations, but I knew that I had some insight to, I know that they've had some healing or they've centered around healing. Yeah. So this is an opportunity to get really intimate with them and then get more answers to the questions that I have. And so I feel like a lot of this has been so beneficial for just me to sit in space in this container with people that I admire and adore and really get deep, but then also walk away with medicine in some sense.
Oh, that's so good. Okay. I'm going to do a follow-up, maybe kind of turning it back to our audience as they are listening to the show. And these might be some questions that they have for you. What do you see as the biggest needs for our communities to heal from social challenges? We don't even have to talk solutions yet. Let's talk about the needs people are experiencing in their communities to heal from these social challenges.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that I feel is this idea of collective. So what's interesting about healing is that it's a very isolating thing because it's just yourself. And some people tend to stay there. And for me, I believe that in order for us to actually heal, we need to have a community and we need to really plug in our social circles and create a community that is supportive of us, that can feed other narratives that are sort of contradictory to the narratives that we were programmed to believe about ourselves. So I feel like the biggest need is to have more people in your life rather than go in a very isolated journey. And even though it is very isolating just to start looking at yourself in the mirror, everyone around you, those relationships that you build are also mirrors to you. So without that community, you're actually not fully healing. And so I think when I think back to my communities of color and what I had mentioned earlier, this idea of surviving, sometimes we believe, it's a blanket sort of comment, but sometimes we believe that we could do it on our own and we could survive on our own. And we don't ask for help. We don't turn to our community. We feel like that's a failure if we rely on others or inconvenient. And so that full healing doesn't actually happen unless we turn outward and say, we got to do this together. And I think we just fail to see that sometimes, especially when we're in it on our own. So I would say that would be the biggest need, is to create and plug into your community and rely on people to truly heal. I mean, I'm not healing on my own. there are moments when I'm by myself. But I have my family, I have my friend circle, I have people that, on this podcast that I could always rely on and talk to and run things by. And also have them check me in moments where my ego really pops up. But I think that idea is really important. And then even on a broader scale, when, like I said earlier, when you're healing, then others are healing, and we're really creating anew. So when I'm thinking about what a just society looks like, we don't know what that looks like in our traumas, in our hurt, in our pain. We're just reacting to what is unjust. But if we were to get out of that collectively and collectively heal, then we can create a more just society. So I really believe, I can't emphasize enough how important community and collective is in your healing process and also in creating process.
And I think that's a takeaway for me from every episode we've recorded. I think each guest has shared that same message in one way or another, and I've definitely, that's landed for me.
Yeah.
So I think that's spot on.
Yeah. So this is not one of those things that you do on your own. You start on your own because there's a lot of shadow work that you probably, I know I in it, in the thick of it. But I also believe that the purpose is not for this individualistic approach where you become healed and now you become a better person in society. The idea is that we are doing this together and we're helping one another out. We are all interconnected in that way. And so I would want people to really lean on their community as much as they can.
All right. I want to end this episode with a question for you that I think everyone listening would love to know the answer to. What do you want the audience to know about their own ability to repair or heal or restore themselves?
Yeah. I would say that we are very powerful humans. We have souls. It doesn't matter what you believe in. I truly believe that there's something bigger than us as humans that are feeding our souls. And when you are able to look inward and perhaps get closer to accessing that part of you, your soul, your innate self, your innate purpose. I know that's cliche to say even purpose, but just truly what you're here to do, you move differently. You see yourself as human with this soul, and you also see others as humans with this soul. And so you're able to kind of cut through, again, the pain, the hurt, the traumas, the inflictions, the programming, and really see people as they are, soul to soul. And that's a beautiful thing. And once you have access to that, you can provide yourself with that worthiness that you look for. You can provide yourself with that enoughness that you look for, that beauty that you look for. You could give all of that to you because you are that powerful. You house all of those things. And I think that's what's been really eye-opening for me in my journey is that I kept on looking for external validation to tell me I'm enough or to tell me that I'm worthy of being in that space. And I'm constantly proving, aiming for perfection, aiming for things that are not really even human, more robotic-like. And when I started to really look deep within myself, I found that I can actually give that to myself. I just have to get through all of the other stuff that has really clouded that part of me. Children, I have a 4-year-old. I see him release emotion and move on to the next thing. I see him regulate the best he can in his human body and then not hold on to that kid bit me, or my mom, said I couldn't do this, or, I'm not, whatever restrictions have been put on him, he doesn't internalize it because his innate self, his true beautiful soul self, is able to experience life. And so I would say that we're very powerful. The closer you are to accessing your soul is the closer you are to being your true self, and you're able to see others for that as well. And you'll, I believe, live a more fulfilled, joyous life. And so that's what I would love for people to know about themselves.
Thank you. Thank you, Neelam, for hosting the show. Thank you for sharing more of your backstory today. We wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't invite everyone to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app, the YouTube channel, where, like, either way, you can watch, you can listen, leave a comment on any episode. If you have questions, you can contact Neelam. You can obviously leave a 5-star rating. But we can't wait for you to hear this season, share feedback, tell the stories of your own healing. So thank you so much.
Thank you. This is awesome. I appreciate you. Thank you.
You're welcome.